Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Watershed Wednesday session. My name is Patricia Ezechie. I'm an executive coach, and every Wednesday I come onto this page and share with you some insights and hopefully some knowledge that will help you in your career progression journey. So I do the sessions on a Wednesday because Wednesday for me is the best day of the week. It's bang in the middle. We've had a couple of days where things may or may not have gone to plan, but if they have, fantastic. We've still got 2 days more to kind of do even more. And if they haven't, there's plenty of time to turn things around. So in today's Watershed Wednesday session, I wanted to kind of share with you a theme that's coming up in a lot of the conversations I'm having, both in my one-to-one sessions with clients, but also in group sessions. And it's also been in some masterclasses that I've been running recently. And it sits in around this space about career progression and getting promoted. And this is a big theme. Usually I'll take hours to kind of discuss and talk and share with you about it. But just in these 15 minutes, I want to just highlight something that's coming up over and over again, which I think you might also find useful to begin to reflect on. Now, the people that I'm working with always are usually extremely competent. They perform very, very well, but they're struggling to make that leap or take that next step in their career. And this could be from middle management to senior management, or it can be from senior management to the next level, which is board level. And it's interesting that the same issue is showing up in all of these people, irrespective of where they are in their careers. And it's this idea that being really good at what you do is enough to get you on that next step to your career, in your career. And if we look at it, take a step out of that and look at it, of course, we should think that actually our performance should be enough to ensure that we're able to progress successfully and take the next step or next subsequent steps in our career. Unfortunately, that isn't the case. And research bears this out. Some research was done back in the 80s, I think, by somebody called Harvey Coleman. He was a management consultant. And he actually attributed career success down to 3 things. Performance was one, image was the other, and exposure was the third. Interestingly enough, though, performance only accounted for 10% of your ability to actually progress in your career. I'll say that again. Your performance, what you do every day and how well you do it, only accounts for about 10% of your ability to progress in your career. 30% was due to what he called image, which is all about what people think of you. And that is determined by whether you're easy to work with, you're positive, you're someone who comes in with solutions, or conversely, you're somebody who tends to be not so positive, but actually you're negative. You're looking at ways that things won't work, so you're not someone that's fun to work with. So 30% was about your image. But a staggering 60% of your career success or progression was due to what he called exposure. Now, exposure is who knows who you are, what you're doing, and where you're doing it. And for him, it's not just about your line manager knowing what you're doing, it's the person above them and people around that and people around that. So how far is your exposure in the space and the work that you're doing? Which is really critical. If you think about it in terms of social media, it's exactly the same idea, this idea of networking and people actually knowing what you do. And I always say when I coach people, you can be as excellent as you want to be in your cupboard, but unless people know what you're doing and the right people know what you're doing and you are visible to them, you are unlikely to progress. Now, for the introverts among us, that can be challenging because we sometimes, and I have sometimes in the past identified exposure with having to be something that I'm not. Being loud and being visible means I have to be seen. So being seen means there needs to be X. But it doesn't mean that at all. What it means really simply is being very clear about who you are. So being very authentic to who you are as a person. How from that space can you then make sure that you are seen and you are heard? And it's interesting enough, in all the cases that I've been working with more recently, these have been people who have been reluctant for whatever reason to be seen or to be heard. They're not seen and heard in meetings because there is an issue that some of them have around shyness. And you can work with that quite simply about basically making sure that you speak quickly or speak early in the session. And so you can hear your own voice. If you hear your own voice, you're more likely to speak again. So there's issues around being seen and being heard in meetings. There's issues around them actually making sure that people know what they do. And somebody I was talking to as recently as yesterday, a very senior person, really senior, said to me that they believed that it was somehow churlish to kind of make sure people recognize that work that was being done that they were responsible for was due to them. But at the same time, they were struggling with other people taking credit for their work. So I said, well, these two things are incongruent. There's something here. If you want people to stop taking credit for your work, there's a piece of work that you need to do to make sure that people are aware of what you do and they're aware of your contribution. Because let's face it, we've all been there. There are many people, unfortunately, in this world of ours who are happy to take credit for something that isn't theirs. But the only way to ensure that doesn't happen is to make sure that any work that you do and deliver well, that the people around you know that you were a contributor to or have delivered that piece of work. So that's first your line manager, it's also your colleagues, it's your manager's manager, and it's their manager, and in time, people outside of your organization. So you can see when we start to think about this exposure piece, how actually just relying on the fact that you're performing well is not enough. And we're not saying that you suddenly have to become a networker extraordinaire. But if you're watching this, if you're on this particular platform, whichever one you're watching this on, you are networking. You are building networks and connections with people. So it's very simplest. It's about the ability to build connections with other people that are genuine, congruent connections. And in that process of doing that, exchanging information about yourself, as well as being curious, wanting to know about them. So I try to keep these 50 sessions to about 15 minutes. This is a very big topic, but just for today, this whole idea, if you're thinking about taking that next step, about wanting to get promoted, there's something here around getting comfortable with being more visible. And it's very simplest. At the next meeting you're in, make sure you are at least seen, and to be seen, you need to be heard. And there's things that you can do, very simple things that you can do on that very basic level to ensure that every meeting you go into, more often than not, you know what the topic's going to be. Prepare 2 or 3 things up front that you want to say, that you can say. And then secondly, get in there early, because the longer you are quiet, the harder it gets to actually speak up. And also, we've all been in those meetings where we've thought of something early on and our inner critic has said, oh, nobody wants to know that. That's silly. And then someone says it 20 minutes later, everybody thinks that they're amazing. So trust in your knowledge and trust in your instinct. And when you have something that you think will be of value, say it. Because what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't land maybe as well as you think it would land. The world doesn't come to an end. People move on. The people that tend to ruminate when that happens are the person that said it. And 9 out of 10 times, nobody remembered what you said. But we're so busy being in our own heads and worrying about what people might think about what we might say that we don't actually say anything. So today's little bit in that whole idea of having exposure and being seen is get out there. Be in that next meeting that you're in. Use that voice of yours. That idea that you had, it could be pivotal or transformational in whatever solution or issue you're discussing in that meeting. It could be the thing that makes all the difference. Conversely, it might not. It might trigger an idea, then becomes a thing that makes all the difference. But the only way to begin this journey of being more seen and being more heard is to be more seen and more heard. And you can start really simply by just saying something at your next meeting. Over the next few sessions, I want to kind of really play with this and talk to you a bit more about it. There's a lot of ways that we can look at this. And the thing about being seen and being heard, one of the things that stops us is this whole inner critic, this whole judge in our own heads that censure us and saying to us that actually nobody wants to listen to what I've got to say. What happens if I get it wrong? What will they think of me? And we'll talk about how we manage that moving on. So just to recap for today's really quick touching with you all, touching, is that the right word? Touch point, check in with you all today. And this little bit of conversation, it's around if you are struggling to get promoted, if you are thinking about progressing, remember that pie chart. 10% is performance, 30% is your brand, and 60% is who knows you, your exposure. So do great work. Of course, you're doing great work, because you wouldn't be thinking about getting promoted if you were not doing great work. Fantastic. Keep performing, because some credibility comes from that and you will get some exposure from that. But also think about how easy you are or not to connect with and work with. That's 30%. But the big piece, 60%, is about who knows what you're doing. Are you being seen? Are you being heard? So at the simplest level, what can you start to do to make sure that you are at least seen and heard, and people know that the work that you're doing is as amazing as it is? That's the way to begin that journey towards career progression. So that's our quick 15-minute check-in today. I am really interested to understand and hear what you think about what I've shared with you today, and also what your experiences are in respect to this whole idea of exposure and the challenges that you are facing around this whole idea about being seen and being heard and showing up congruently as you. We've had 15 minutes. It's something that I would spend several sessions, group sessions or one-to-one sessions with somebody exploring, something that we would be exploring in our time together if you do work with me in any of the ways that you can work with me moving forward. There is lots of resources available to you if you want to find out more about creating career you want in the career progression space. They're under this video on this page. So just click under this video to either do the free training or to do the career assessment, which will help you with some pointers to get you moving. And also wanted to say today, I'm going to announce it, that the Creating the Career You Want program will be rolling out again on the 20th of September. So if you are ready to really begin that journey and that work to create that career that you want, and we're looking at all of these things. What makes you you? What are you great at? What are your skills and strengths? How can you become more confident? How can you become more congruent? What makes you authentic? How can you be authentic? Self-belief, confidence, mindset. If this is something that you think will be of value to you in moving your career forward, and I know it will because I work with thousands of people doing this all the time, and it is a game changer, then go over to my website at www.patriciaezechie.com/create the career. And you can leave your details there, and I will send you more information when we get close to when the course is going to begin back in September. While you're there, check out the free resources. So that's it for today's Watershed Wednesday session. So your takeaways are, in the next week, before we next meet, be heard, be seen, be visible, because your ability to progress in your career at whatever level is, in some respects, 6% of it, according to this research, is determined by who knows what you're doing, and who knows what you're doing, and who knows what you're doing, and who knows, from the line manager all the way to outside your organization. So think about the things that you can begin to do to increase your impact, to increase your ability to influence, and to increase your visibility in the spaces that you're working in. And we can, any questions around this, or any ideas, or anything around this that you want to kind of ask me, just pop it in under this video, and I'll be happy to answer either there or in one of our next sessions. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. And until then, have an absolutely amazing rest of the week. And I'll see you then. Bye for now.